Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us. We are going to just wait 1 minute while we wait for a few other people to join, and then we will get started talking about thriving in this year's Texas A&M college admission process. So we're excited to talk about it tonight. Just so you know, while y'all are coming in, we will be recording this and we will be sending it out to you in an email tomorrow. So no need to worry about that. We'll definitely be doing that. And if you have questions, which I'm sure some of you will, please use the Q&A. We have our wonderful Meredith is going to be answering questions. So hopefully we will have a great webinar and answer all your questions. All right, I'm just going to give it 30 more seconds or so for people to keep coming in. I hope everyone is having a great evening. We did hear some news about Reveille, A&M's mascot today. I don't know if anyone else saw that, but poor Reveille had eyeball surgery and had glaucoma. And then they were worried about some more tissue in her eyes and they had to take out her eyeball. So now Reveille has one eye. But other than that, she's doing great. So that is the bit of news about A&M today. All right, I think we will go ahead and get started. So I'm Julie Ritchie. I'm one of the college coaches here at ESM College MatchPoint, along with Delara Sear and Meredith Hendricks. And the three of us have a lot of experience with students applying to Texas A&M. We also wrote our guides, which you are getting tomorrow in our email that we will send with you with this recorded webinar. So Delara wrote that, I think, well, I don't know what, 4 years ago or so, and we updated every year. We've just updated it. So you will be getting that in your email. And we are excited to be presenting to you tonight. Meredith is going to be on Q&A. So if you have questions, please post them in the Q&A and Meredith will be answering. If there are any that are really relevant to the whole group, it's possible that we may be answering some live, but mostly she will be answering them in the Q&A. If you have a question and it's directly related to your own student's specific situation or experience, we would like you to, we probably can't answer that here because we'll need some more context, but you're welcome to respond to the email we send you tomorrow, and we'll be happy to answer it then. All right, here's some quick facts about us. We've worked with students applying to A&M for over 17 years. And most of the people we work with are not auto admits, meaning they were not in the top 10% of their class, so they were not automatically admitted. We're really proud of all of our Aggies and so many who are thriving there. I mentioned the mascot, Miss Reveille. And A&M is actually the second largest university in the country. I don't know if anyone's aware of that. It's huge. It's also the #1 public university of CEOs of Fortune 500 companies, which is kind of cool. It is also first among national public universities for superior education at an affordable cost. So we're going to talk about admissions data from this year. As a lot of Southern schools, A&M is experiencing growth in applications, mostly from out of state, interestingly. 50% of the incoming class was top 10% of their high school class, meaning they were auto-admitted to the university. About 90% are in the top 35% of their class. So you can see there's really a high caliber of students that are choosing to go to A&M and being accepted there. As a note, even if your high school doesn't rank, because a lot of schools don't, students can estimate their GPA position in the sort of class bell curve by looking at your high school profile. And to find that, you can either Google it or you could ask your high school counselor to kind of see where you fit. One thing about A&M is that competitive majors like engineering, business, well, actually just engineering, and non-top 10% students go through a holistic review process, which I'm going to explain more about in a minute. Testing, the testing policy is that A&M is still test optional, unlike, UT. It's still test optional. However, 71% of last year's incoming class did submit test scores. So students are still submitting them, and A&M really values rigor in the transcript. So meaning when you had a chance to take an advanced class or an AP class, did you do it? And they really value test scores when they're available, if they are, above the middle 50% range. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. Also, A&M is really a trailblazer with a lot of alternative pathways. They really want students to get on campus to provide opportunities. So there are a lot of alternative pathways that sometimes students get offered or they can take advantage of. So that's something that we will be talking about, and you can find information on the website. A&M really wants students to be part of the community. If not on the College Station campus freshman year, they'll find ways to include you sophomore year. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the review process. As a reminder, if you have questions, please put them in the Q&A. So as I mentioned, A&M reviews students through two different paths. The first is through automatic admissions. Those students in the top 10% of their high school class at the end of their junior year are admitted automatically to the university, although not guaranteed a specific major. So these students are all required to send an official high school transcript to A&M confirming their top 10% ranking. And students can work with their counselors on that. Counselors will do that in the fall. But the majority of students we work with are not in the top 10% of their high school classes. So these students are read holistically. So what does that mean? A&M really looks at every aspect of their application, including all high school courses taken and grades earned, the rigor of the coursework, which I just talked about. For younger or parents of younger students or any younger students on this webinar, the takeaway is really to put your efforts into taking the most rigorous courses you can handle, particularly in courses most related to your strengths and your interests, and really aim for the highest grades you can, because your GPA and the rigor of your coursework will be one of the most important data points that A&M looks at when reviewing your application. They will look at test scores if submitted. And like I said, Texas A&M is still test optional at this point. But if you are aiming for one of the competitive majors, engineering, business, architecture, biology, those kinds of things, high test scores are something that can really add to your application if that's a place where you shine. So they really encourage you to send scores if you have them. And they emphasize that they will use the scores to benefit you, not penalize you. Extracurricular activities, as listed on your common application, the activity section, and a resume. You can send a resume to Texas A&M, including community service, leadership, employment, summer activities, as well as any extraordinary opportunities, challenges, and hardships experienced during your high school career, which you can talk about in your essays. We do recommend that students show their fit for their first choice major through the activity section and those classes they've taken, because that will really help in the holistic review process. Demonstrated interest does come into play at A&M, and we really encourage students to show A&M that you're interested in them. On the common application, there's actually a question that asks how you have interacted with A&M. So there's like multiple boxes you can pick, and it's really good to be able to pick at least one. So go visit the campus or attend, when they come to visit your school, meet with the rep. You can email an admissions rep to ask a question. Like, any of these things count. Okay, so A&M is a little bit unique in their admissions because they offer rolling admissions but with a twist. So applicants who are in the top 10% of their high school class will typically get their admissions decision in a few weeks once A&M receives their official transcript and can confirm their rank. All applicants who apply to the College of Engineering and have a complete admission file by the early action deadline of October 15th will receive a communication regarding their admission by mid-December. But for those outside the top 10%, the holistic review people, it's a little bit different. So majors at A&M fill up quickly because they are filled as applications come in with qualified students. That's why it's important to submit your application early. However, I know a lot of you have maybe heard that you should submit your application on August 1st when the Common Application opens. And I would highly encourage you not to do that. Sometimes there are bugs and glitches in the application the first week it's open. Sometimes a new question gets added or something gets changed in the application with that first week. And A&M counselors have told us that they really prefer to see students wait because they want to make sure you have done a really thorough and careful job with your application and given it, enough attention and proofread it. So while early is definitely better, we definitely recommend not doing the first week. If you can get it in August, that would be great. So most students apply, even if you do get it in August, though, for holistic review students, you may not receive a decision until between January and March. So early is better, especially for the most competitive programs. For May's business school applicants, for example, we recommend submitting no later than August 31st, for sure. Engineering has an early action deadline of October 15th, but that doesn't mean you have to wait until October 15th to submit. So we recommend getting that in. Testing. So while A&M is still test optional, you can choose whether to submit your test scores. So if your test scores, look where your students' test scores fall compared to that middle 50% of accepted applicants and the major you're choosing. For competitive majors, the test scores need to be higher. They really encourage students who have scores that match their major to send them. And like I said earlier, they work hard not to disadvantage students who send them. So they'll use them if they help the student and not if they don't. To submit your test scores, you're going to go through the testing agency. So if you took the SAT, you're going to submit through the College Board. If you took the ACT, you're going to submit through act.org. One thing I want to emphasize is you need to make sure to request your scores be sent well in advance of the deadline or just very early in the process if you have them already. You don't want to wait until the last minute because as the fall starts, it can take multiple weeks for scores to be sent. Like sometimes students think they can hit send and it happens immediately. It doesn't. Sometimes it takes 2 or 3 weeks. So just keep that in mind. Sometimes students ask us if they should take a fall test. And our answer is usually that it depends. Will you have time to do additional prep and maybe practice tests before another test? If not, it might not be worth it. Will testing impact your fall grades? Because even though those fall grades are not part of the GPA that your school will be sending or that you will be reporting, fall grades may come into play later in the process in case you are deferred. So if prepping for another test might impact your grades, you might want to think about that. But in general, if you're applying to a competitive major and you're trying to up your score and you think it could help, it may make sense to take a fall test. All right. Now, Delara is going to talk a little bit about majors.
Thanks, Julie. All right, let's talk about majors. So A&M is a major-focused school. So you cannot really apply to A&M as an undecided student. They don't really have the resources for undecided students. So in your application, you will need to designate the major you want to apply to, both your first choice major and your second choice major. They will often read you for both of them. So because you can't apply undecided, it's important to take some time to review the major offerings at A&M because you have access to over 140 different ones. So while you do have to pick your major, on the flip side, it is also easier to switch around once you are already at A&M. So keep that in mind as well. There are some programs that are exceptionally popular at A&M, the ones that they are most known for. These aren't specific majors, but rather, the organizational academic divisions that these majors are housed in. The first is engineering. So if you didn't know, A&M has a student body of almost 1/3 engineering students. So, that's pretty significant. And it is one of their largest colleges. So about 20,000 students are in the engineering program across several majors at A&M. Mechanical and electrical and computer science are their three biggest majors within that. The next largest major or program at A&M is going to be business, all of the majors that comprise business. But you'll notice compared to the 20,000 students in engineering, business is, much smaller. It's, less than half of the size of engineering. So while it is large relative to some other programs, it is much smaller. So keep that in mind when we talk about the space filling up. There aren't that many spaces available. Next is agriculture. A&M started as an agricultural university. They have amazing programs in agriculture like agribusiness, poultry science, as well as a major in hotel and hospitality management was in the College of Agriculture. And then finally, biology related majors. So there's going to be biology, microbiology, zoology, and neuroscience. All right, let's talk a little bit more specifically about A&M engineering and things to keep in mind when you apply to engineering programs at A&M. So as I mentioned, 30% of A&M students are engineering majors. That's huge. And there are over 20 different engineering specialties to pick from. Because they have so many different specialties, and some of them are really niche and interesting and worth looking into. But because of that, A&M does not require or want students to come in knowing exactly what they want to study within the field of engineering. So first-year students who receive admissions offers from A&M Engineering are actually put into the general engineering program. And they go through that program for at least 2 semesters, taking general engineering classes and earning a certain GPA. And then after that, they undergo an entry to a major process. This is an application process where they have to write essays and prove their success in the classes they've taken, and they are then matched into one of their top 3 to 5 engineering majors. I think it's a really great process that it gives students time to really understand what they're getting into, get used to college level engineering study, but just keep that in mind about that general engineering program. It's much different than how UT does it, where when you are admitted to UT engineering, you're admitted into aerospace or mechanical. A&M doesn't work that way. Last thing to keep in mind is that engineering is the only program with an early action deadline. So if your application is ready to go by October 15th, try and get that in there by then. A&M no longer asks for an engineering specific essay either. So getting that application in by the early action deadline is easier than ever. All right, so because A&M is such a large university and has so many great programs, there are several that are more popular than they have space available. So the Mays School of Business is a phenomenal business program, but it's not very big, as we just talked about. There are limited spaces for students. So if you're interested in a major within the Mays School of Business, like accounting or finance or any of those majors, you want to get that application in by the end of August to maximize your chances of admission. So we have a little over a month now. Make sure your personal statement is polished. Make sure you are working on your A&M essays that Julie's going to talk about shortly, so that you can get that application in early, even if you're an auto admit. The College of Nursing is also very space limited, but it's also kind of a tricky major. You can't apply to nursing as a first-time applicant. So in your senior year, you can't apply to be a nursing major at A&M. Instead, you go through a 2-year curriculum process where you take your classes and earn a certain GPA, and then you apply to transfer into their nursing major. It's very competitive because there are only a certain number of spots for nurses at A&M. And then finally, architecture. There are several architecture majors at A&M, and they're all competitive because they're small programs and they're very resource intensive. So if these are majors you have your eye on, get your application polished and turned in as early as you can. All right, so there are many, many really cool and interesting majors at A&M. Some of them I think are really worth a closer look because they're the kinds of things you can't find at other schools. The first is the visualization major. So this is A&M's like digital art major, I guess is how I would refer to it. It's one of the only kind of programs of its kind. It's really hands-on, really creative. It's a big source of recruitment from Pixar. So if you're interested in, working in film or game design or anything like that, take a look at visualization. It doesn't require a portfolio either, which, for the caliber of the program, that's such a huge plus for applicants. A&M has one of the best meteorology programs in the country. So if you're interested in that subject, you should definitely take a look at A&M's major. And then a few other favorites include dance science, entomology, which is the study of bugs. You can major in the study of bugs at A&M, and turfgrass science. There are a lot of really cool options. I recommend spending some time on the A&M Career Center website, where they list out these majors and tell you about the curriculum because they're just amazing. And then finally, A&M has some new majors or newer majors since we've last hosted this webinar. So building off their roots as a space grant university, A&M is launching a space engineering major. We're hoping it's going to be ready by this fall, but it will be coming soon regardless. So this program, or this major, is focused on like building habitats in space, not necessarily like getting us to space, but engineering once you're already in space, which is really cool. Financial planning is a new business major within the May School of Business, and international affairs, which was formerly a graduate degree only, is now an undergraduate major. And then last but not least, if you are majoring in rangeland, wildlife, and fisheries management, you can now concentrate in outdoor enterprise management, which is kind of like a outdoor tourism and hospitality dimension to that major. So now Julie is going to walk us through writing your A&M essays.
Thanks, Laura. All right, guys. So essays. Students are going to be asked to submit 3 essays to A&M. And these are where a student really gets to share their unique stories. First off, we have the personal statement. So this is the longer essay that a student is going to write, not only for A&M, but is going to send to all their schools. We recommend that students really start with the prompt that A&M uses, which is, tell us your unique story. What unique opportunities or challenges have you experienced throughout your high school career that have shaped who you are today? When thinking about the role of the personal statement, I always explain to students about how it's going to be used. So an admission reviewer is going to sit down to look at your file, probably on the computer, including your transcript. They're going to see your test scores if you have submitted them. They're going to see all the information on your application about your activities, any awards, your classes you're taking, your school. And then they're going to read your essay. So by the time they get to it, they already know a lot about you. So it's really important not to just rehash your resume or your academic achievements in your essay, because they will already know that information. And you'd be giving away a prime opportunity to help them get to know more about you. So this is your chance in this essay to go a little deeper and reflect about your high school experience, or at least one piece of it. I really like to help students begin brainstorming this personal statement by asking them to think about how they are different now than who they were in their freshman year. And then think about the experiences in or outside of school that have shaped them into who they are today. Because showing that growth over high school is going to make for a really compelling essay that will help A&M learn about who your student is and who they will be on their campus. Since students don't get to do an interview with admissions readers, I would consider their essay a way to share information about themselves, their values, how they'll make a contribution to the A&M campus. This is what really makes an effective personal statement. They will also have to write at least 2 short answer supplements. The 2 required questions, which are up to 250 words, are describe a life event which you feel has prepared you to be successful in college, and tell us about a person who has most impacted your life and why. So let's talk about these. The first question is really asking you to signal to them that you've developed the study skills, the social skills, the community building skills that will help you thrive on campus. So I recommend when students are brainstorming these essays that they take a look at A&M's core values. They can just Google Texas A&M core values. They'll get to the page. It's a very values and tradition-driven university. So any link that students can make between themselves and their own values and what the university believes is an excellent way of showing how they're going to contribute to that campus and be successful while on it. Adding specific academic opportunities they might take advantage of, specific organizations they might join, are all great ways to show they've researched the university and they know how they're going to get involved on campus. The second short answer question is a little bit more tricky for some students. Remember, they don't want to know the biography of the person that impacted you. You have to be the main character, or your student has to be the main character of this essay. So you want to describe specifically how this person has impacted your life and reflect on how your life has been different because of your relationship with this person. And then you want to share how what you've learned from this person is going to be something you carry forward with you onto the A&M campus to show, again, how or what type of student are you going to be? What are you going to contribute to the A&M campus? It's always great to share specifics about what this will look like at A&M, because you want to make it really easy for that admissions reader to know how you're going to impact the community. Just spell it out. So for example, if someone in your life taught you the value of service to others, you might want to describe how at A&M, that's going to be something you're so passionate about that you'll actively engage in the Ramps Club. The Ramps Club is representing A&M by performing service to further your commitment to community service, right? So that A&M really understands how actively you plan to contribute to the school community. So there's also a third optional question. And this is sort of the additional information question that is also on the Common App. A&M has their own version of it. And that asks you if there are any challenges, hardships, opportunities, anything maybe COVID related even, that was a while ago, but that have shaped or impacted your abilities or academic credentials that you have not already written about. So if, for example, your student had a semester where their grades really went down because, they got a concussion, or there was a family illness, or there was anything that might have affected their grades and might cause a question for a viewer, admissions reader looking at their transcript, then you might want to explain it to give context so they can understand, oh, that makes total sense, and not just wonder what happened. So really, it's if there's anything that could help explain something or could add additional context, you'll want to write that in a short, again, 250 words, very short essay. Those are the essays. So it's not that much, right? One long essay, 2 short ones, maybe 3 if you need an additional information.
Not bad at all.
Not bad. Now, Delara is going to tell you a little bit more about the honors programs and the application process.
About all the other things you need to know about applying to A&M. Thank you, Julie. Honors programs are, in general, just a great opportunity for students who are looking for additional challenge and engagement in their college career. So if your student loves doing research, or they love class discussions, or they really want to do some sort of like big, like culminating project, like a thesis or something like that, those are the kinds of students who are going to thrive in an honors program. So at A&M, there are several kinds of honors opportunities. There's the larger university honors program. This is for students across any major who come together in a larger honors community. They live together in the same dorm, they get priority registration, and they do sort of interdisciplinary coursework and special projects throughout their 4 years at A&M. There are also departmental honors programs, so something like biology honors or chemistry honors that correspond to your particular major. Both of these are things you can apply for at the same time you're applying to A&M as a senior in high school. You just indicate your interest in applying to one of these programs in your application. I think you just check a box, and then A&M sends you the materials you need to complete the honors application. It usually requires additional essays and letters of recommendation and things like that. You also have the opportunity to apply for honors programs once you're already a student. If you are interested in learning more about A&M's honors programs, which you definitely should, take a look at their website launch. It is their hub for all things honors at A&M. It goes into detail about each of the programs and the perks of enrolling in them. The last honors opportunity I want to share with y'all is the business honors program at A&M. This is a little bit different. It's both an honors program and an academic major. So it's kind of like Plan 2 at UT, if you're familiar with that, but this is more business focused. This is very competitive. So this is A&M's program where they are looking for high-end students, typically students who are in the top end of their class with high test scores. I've heard from an admissions officer, they're looking for students with, high 1400s into the 1500s for the business honors program. But they're also looking for students who are involved in their communities, who are active and engaged students and learners, and who are interested in getting involved and taking initiative on behalf of the things that interest them. You can apply to business honors and university honors at the same time, which is, a great option for students who are really looking to supercharge their academic experience. So now that we've shared all about why and how to apply to A&M, why you should apply and how you should apply, let's discuss some of the finer details of your A&M application. I want to tell y'all a little bit about your A&M timeline. So you have, just application methods. The common application is the application we recommend using to apply to A&M. It is the most common, the most widely used, and the most user-friendly. And you can use it to apply to up to 20 colleges. There's also the Apply Texas application. If you are only applying to Texas universities, you can use Apply Texas. It is the state funded and developed application platform. A&M does not prefer one application over the other. Use the one that makes the most sense to you. The other thing to keep in mind about your A&M application is that once you apply, you will gain access to something called the AIS, Applicant Information System. The AIS is how A&M communicates with you about your application and how you can track your application's progress through the review process. So once you submit your application, about 72 hours later, you make your account with your AIS and you see, has A&M received my application? Have they received my test scores? Am I missing any documents? This is also going to be where A&M informs you of your application decision. And as Julie mentioned, sometimes A&M can be a little bit unpredictable about when they inform you of your application decision. So checking that portal regularly, that AIS platform, is a habit that I encourage all of my students to gain familiarity with, not just for A&M, but for all of your colleges.
I just want to interject here that A&M has told us that they do check, like that is part of demonstrated interest, is checking your AIS portal,
Yeah.
because they know that they can see that you've checked it. So by checking it a lot, you're showing your eagerness to see your results. So that is a good way to show demonstrated interest.
And that's something that's unique to A&M. We have not really heard word from other colleges that they track how often the student engages with their post-admission materials. And then one final thing on the word of timelines, we've stressed that, get your A&M application in early, especially for competitive majors. The regular decision deadline for A&M is December 1st. So that is the final deadline to get your application in. That's also the final deadline for things like honors college applications and scholarship applications. A final piece about the A&M application that is important to know about is called the self-reported academic record, also known as the SRAR. The self-reported academic record is a transcript that students complete themselves online. So Julie, if you can go to the next slide. Basically, A&M has created, they didn't create it, but they use this service called the SRAR for students to input their grades for every class in high school they've taken across all 4 years of high school. And they create this online and they link it to their A&M application. The reason A&M does this, instead of having students submit transcripts from their high school, which is typical for most colleges, is because it fast tracks the review process. A&M is such a big school, they have so many applications that having a digital transcript like that makes it much easier for them to, move through the volume of applications that they have. So when it comes to filling out your A&M application, it will not be complete until you complete the SRAR and connect it to your A&M application, which you do through your A&M portal. As I say this out loud, I realize it's kind of confusing, but once you're looking at your A&M portal after submitting your application, it becomes very clear how to do the, attaching the SRAR to your application. But the thing to keep in mind is making the SRAR in advance of submitting your application so that it doesn't hold up your application review. So you need to, collect your report cards or get a transcript from your high school. Don't complete it just off of your memory, because if there is a mistake in your SRAR, it could get you in trouble later on. Put in all of your grades and the classes that you've taken exactly as they appear on your transcript. It could take, around 90 minutes to 2 hours. So don't leave it to the last minute the night you want to submit your application, because, it's painstaking and detail oriented. A&M offers amazing resources for completing the SRAR and a great FAQ page on completing the SRAR. So make sure you take a look at that if you have any questions about the SRAR.
I also think it's a great two-person job.
Yes.
One person inputting and one person reading out and confirming that we're putting in the exact right number of the grade or letter grade and the name of the class. So
So for any parents on the call, sit down with your kid and their grades, their report cards, and help them, read off or type into the SRAR website. It will make it go much faster.
All right. So I wanted to, now that we've talked a lot about Texas A&M, I know you guys may have more questions, but I wanted to just mention that we do have a webinar coming up on August 6th, which is about unlocking UT Austin admissions. So if you have a student who is also applying to UT or interested in UT maybe, we will have information about that in our follow-up email tomorrow. So feel free to register for that. If you do have questions that you didn't get answered tonight, just simply reply to our email tomorrow and we'll do our best to answer any questions you still have about A&M. I know it's hard to get to everything on this webinar, but we're happy to try to answer those by email, okay? Or set up a time to talk with you if it's specific to your student. All right. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, and I hope you all have a great night.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.